Call this meeting to order of the Lincoln County Board of Education, meeting in regular session on Tuesday, October 15 at 7 p.m. We are at the county office in Hamlin. This meeting is being live streamed, and a copy of the meeting will be on the board's website within 5 working days. This time, I'm going to ask Mr. Robert Mosteller to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we have no public comment for this evening. Brings us to item 3, approve minutes of the September 27 and October 1 meeting. So moved. Wilson makes a motion.
Second.
Cartwright seconds. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's unanimous 5-0. Brings us to the administrative items. Have any discussion?
The policy there on the using retired bus drivers, is that new or have we been doing that in the past?
That's a renewal for critical
A
need.
renewal, okay.
What does that mean, Frank?
Means that any place we have critical need, math teachers, special ed teachers, English teachers, that we can use retirees.
So you don't just have to limit it to bus drivers
No,
who
no.
have retired.
No.
It can, well, now, do they have to have a special driving license?
Well, the bus drivers will, yeah, they have
Yeah.
to be retired bus drivers,
Yeah,
but areas of critical need can be your academic need too.
right, too.
Yeah.
But is there an age limit on the bus drivers, do you think?
As long as they have an active CDL.
Now,
With that
what does
endorsement.
active mean, just as long?
It's
just
still good.
lifetime?
No, as long as it's still good,
Okay.
valid.
So they put a date on that?
It's a valid CDL with a passenger endorsement.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
What areas of critical need do we have off the top of your head?
Special education,
Mhm.
math,
It's anywhere we have
And the-
long-term.
anywhere we have
right now.
long-term subs.
Obviously, special education and math is big too, but we've listed some other places too. Like, we've had, what is it? Yeah, it's listed in the policy, the areas that are in.
Okay.
on there.
Do you have the number of long-term subs we have? Do you know right offhand?
You know what? I don't know the exact number, but it's not that many. Last year,
Well, that's good.
we probably had a dozen. I would say this year, it's 5 or less.
Oh, that's good.
We have all certified math teachers, do we not?
Yes, we do. And at the high school.
At the high school. Now,
Does
junior,
the elementary still have a general education license
They
that
do,
teaches them
Yeah.
that they can teach math?
yeah,
That's correct.
yeah.
So
okay,
where
good.
would we be?
We've got a couple of openings in the middle schools.
For math teachers?
Okay, middle schools, their general education license, the elementary wouldn't cover that.
No, because a lot of, now the old timers have the K-8s.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Most of them now are K-5
Ah,
or pre-K
okay.
5.
Some
Times
K
change.
six, yeah. There's some K6s, but they're older too.
Right.
Yeah, but
Okay.
they don't go up to
But on,
K8.
on the purple sheet, you can see there, critical need. Science classes, ELA, math, special education. The ones that
Oh,
are marked out are ones that we had last year
Okay.
that aren't in area of critical need now, because we actually have certified people. Those positions now.
Okay.
Is Brooke Neal still with us?
Yeah,
Neal.
Neal.
Is she is? Okay.
Brooke is,
Just,
yes, Seth's on left.
did he retire or do something
He went
else?
to Cabell Midland.
Oh. Closer where they live.
Well, he took his teacher's job
Wow,
when she retired.
She probably called me.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
All right. Any other discussion on administrative items? If not, can I have a motion for approval?
Make a motion.
Cartwright makes a motion,
second.
Mosteller seconds. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Brings us to the finance section. Austin's not here. Do you all feel comfortable in That's next time,
Yeah.
next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Cause I said, okay, we'll hold that to the next time. All right, any discussion on finance?
Make a motion we approve.
Wilson, second,
Second.
Cartwright. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Brings us to the personnel section.
I have something on personnel section, personnel item, B1. I just got a question, statement. We went from, we had the job posted,
Mhm.
correct? We had we had the applicants, they interviewed.
No. On the first time, no.
Yes, no interviews on the first time.
No. Are you talking about this time, this particular time?
No, this one before,
Okay, no, there were no interviews. That
was
was,
there a job, was there a job offered and accepted?
no, it hadn't been, well, it hadn't been through board action yet.
Right, but I'm talking about from the principal.
There was,
Okay, so here's what I just wanna,
Okay.
I wanna make it look above
right.
board. It kind of, from what's been talked about out,
In the
it
community.
looks kind of shady.
So
So,
I can tell you what happened.
but could this, let me just,
Okay.
I just wanted to say this real quick. We went from that point to, being offered by the principal to, be on the agenda, being off the agenda, the job's posted again, we interview, and now we have a new individual. I just want to really allow to be clarified because
Okay.
it just kind of looks
The,
shady.
the first time through, the principal offered the job prematurely without thinking that all the applicants weren't qualified, when in fact they were. So there were no interviews that took place.
Okay.
Just
after-
with her,
J-
she just knew that person that she.
No, I don't know.
Oh,
about that,
okay.
But after speaking to our attorney to make sure that we were going to be okay on that, she recommended that if we would be in our best interest to pull that off the agenda and repost it, because the other people were in fact eligible for the position. There were two other applicants. They were
Right.
eligible, but no interviews were being held. So following her advice, that's what we did. It was posted again. The same three people interviewed or applied. Two of them pulled their bid.
So-
Did we get a was there any official reason or does there have one given or just,
No, not to me.
okay, well, I mean, I just didn't know if anything was said officially, but,
So this is the only applicant?
That's the, yes.
Okay.
okay. But like I said, I just wanted to
Oh,
have a
absolutely.
chance to explain it because like I said, out in the community, people asking me and I couldn't really answer at the
Yeah.
time. That clarifies things so it doesn't look like,
Robert, I had talked to Mr. Barnett yesterday. I called him because I'm getting the same information you get. And my question to him was, under our current policy, does the head coach make a recommendation who he wants for
and he
his
should.
staff? And if I remember correctly, the head coach opted not to make a recommendation
Okay.
on either of the people involved in this thing.
That's correct.
So,
Okay.
and I think we're going to talk about athletics at the end of this meeting tonight, before we get to the end of it, because I'm kind of confused about processes that we go through. But,
But, and one thing that maybe that's our policy and how we do things. I'm not a big fan of during the interview process, just in general, that the head coach, that you have your principal and AD doing your interviews when your head coach really should be,
Well, head coach was offered the opportunity and declined.
okay. Okay.
But do you also do an interview with
I
them?
do not.
You do not? Okay. They just to make the
I can't hit the
recommendation.
ground with a basketball. So
Yeah.
I depend on the people who know the
Right.
game.
So-
to-
But once they give you that recommendation, do you talk to that person? Okay.
And that's, they had the opportunity
Yeah.
and that's perfectly, what else?
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
And that helps me because I can tell the
Yeah.
people that I'm dealing with,
I think we need to look at our policy. You all may know it off the top of your head about how a coach selects his staff who selects it or the process. My gut feeling is that if you hire somebody as head coach, given some egregious problem with his staff, he probably should have who he wants to help him on the staff. He should select that and then present it to the principal who presents it to us. I don't know how that works. It may be the AD, it may be the principal, I don't know, but if we have a policy, if we have one that addresses it, we probably need to take a look at that. And it doesn't do any good to have a head coach. And I'm not saying this is the case because I don't know anything
Anybody
about
that-
this other than what I've been told. But it doesn't do any good to have a head coach, whether it's football or basketball or volleyball, if you've got somebody else that the head coach doesn't get along with. That does not make, I've seen that in the past, and that does not make a good situation.
Well, to my knowledge, and again, let me preface that again by saying to my knowledge, once the head coach is in place, they always have the opportunity to have their input in
Right.
on interviews and
Yeah, but see, that's where I have a problem.
But the, but
An
the.
opportunity for their input, to me, is not enough. It should be barring something egregious in the character of the person that they want.
And
They
he
should
But
pick their
wouldn't
he
staff.
needs to be there. but-
So
Yeah.
let's take a look at
Yeah.
that policy. If we can have that on hand next week.
There is, there's not.
we were looking at this
Coach
today.
Only, as I looked at it. It pertains to extra.
Curricular.
Contract, and coaches are included in that. And so whatever the agreement is
Would cover it.
in
We'd
the
have to.
contract between, the board and the coach, that's what you go by. And all of our, we've had the same extracurricular contract for probably since I coached, which was many, many years ago. So, I really don't think it's changed. And so, and in our contract, it doesn't say it's a continuing contract, but it does say that if you're gonna part ways with a coach, that, you have to give specific reason in order to do that.
Is that
Yeah.
a year-to-year thing? A coach's,
Well,
a coach's
like I said,
employment?
It doesn't say.
It doesn't
It's
say.
a continuing contract, but with coaches, we have set the precedent of doing that with
Yeah.
professional coaches.
No,
But
We can
not
change
with-
the precedent.
not with assistants.
But
Or
not with the
assistants.
people who just come in.
For assistant coaches,
Yeah,
our precedent has been said that if they're if they're hired, not just a professional, but they're
in the school
employed by the
system.
board,
Mhm.
that contract continues. And of course, they're all evaluated. If they don't get evaluations or bad evaluations, there's no need not to continue.
Who does the evaluations?
That would
The high
be
school
at the
principal.
High school, if you're referring to the high school,
Yeah,
it'd be
just-
the athletic director.
Yeah. Oh, I thought the principal would.
Principal can also do it, but no, since we've hired an athletic director, that's been the job of that.
So let me ask you this, have we ever parted ways with a coach based on a continual losing record? I mean,
That'd be tough to do
Not
sometimes.
to my,
I don't know, I'm asking,
not to my knowledge, I don't know.
It's,
I mean, you all been around a while.
from my day and time, coaches kind of knew when to go.
And they win.
I heard it's not even on the criteria
Sometime back. but-
Sure,
as far as evaluation.
But you just have bad years.
You talk
too,
about
know.
that policy and
You gotta watch.
again, we'll get into this at the end when I bring something else up, but precedent crumbles when we pass a policy.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
the legal code is what I'm most worried
Me
about.
too, David.
Is
Whether or
there-
not the policy we make
Fits with.
rises to the
Is there
occasion.
anything in
Me too.
code that would prevent us from making a policy specifically for?
I'm getting interpretation on that because the way you read the code, it makes it look like that if the person that's in the position is a professional, then they're handled differently than a
Then-
Form 39 citizen coach.
Mhm.
So we just want to make sure that we have,
and maybe the evaluation criteria, instead of just having an individual evaluate. Maybe there should be like I don't know, again, I don't know
Mhm.
the legalities of it, but have not the board, but a board of some sort, an evaluation board or something that I'm just, just talking out loud or thinking out
Well,
loud.
an irony of this,
Yeah.
I can show you what our coach's evaluation form looks like.
Now, does the principal do that or the athletic director at all places that we have?
Well,
It's
we
the
only have
athletic
one
director.
athletic director at the high
It's the
school.
same.
Okay, but I mean,
That person has been evaluating coaches, at the high school now, in the middle school, it's gonna be the principal and the vice principal who do that.
should we look at that though? Like, we need to look at maybe some policies from other
let's
places.
go to the end of the meeting, and
Okay,
I think
and talk
what I'm
about,
gonna throw out here to you,
Well,
clear some of
okay.
that up probably.
Well, so I do know that coaches is the only extracurricular position that doesn't get rebid every year.
the only one that we have.
Head coaches
Mhm.
is the only
The
extracurricular position.
assistants, not the assistants, just the
Yeah,
head
you know, it's
coaches.
like at the end of every year, all the technology contacts, all the community, or the parent educators, we got them, I can't think of their name right now. They make $15 an hour, 20 hours a week. Those are all terminated at the end of each year through board action.
Okay. And then have to be
And then-
rehired for the following school year
The main reason we do that is because we don't know if we're gonna have the funding
to pay them.
to have those positions the following year.
Yeah.
So in the fall, we bid that job again and people who weren't coaches last year may also bid in or make an application,
If we
right?
were to do it that way.
We'd have to
If
do
we
it that
don't do
way
that-
with the,
I keep saying professional, but I should say employees
Employee
of the
coaches.
board.
Right.
Since we don't do that with employees of the board, then, it wouldn't be reposted, and state code allows those
to be that
professional,
one.
those employees to keep their job if they're employed with the board without having to repost it every.
Every time. I wasn't sure about what the state
State
required.
code does allow that, but as I said, in policy, it's whatever you agree to in the contract.
I pulled Kanawha County's policy today and it does, it says the same thing that professional or employee coaches are reemployed year to year while they're or not volunteer coaches, but they're citizen
Assistant.
coaches. They're Form 39 citizen coaches. They are reposted annually.
But as long as those citizen coaches get that Form 39 completed and pay their $35 fee, we haven't been reposting on them either.
And
It's the only time that we do it is if they don't take care of business and get their Form 39 in and pay the money.
Do
Right,
we,
which is what happened in this situation here,
Oh.
because my wife was actually on that form, her Form 39 was out, but regardless, that job was terminated, so it's gotta go back to
Correct.
the,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and,
Correct.
but
We
it.
terminated probably 3 or 4 coaching jobs that night,
Mhm.
Here's
due
a
to Form 39 not being completed.
question that I have. Is there anything in code that would prohibit a Board of Education from employing a coach of any sport under a contract for a given number of years,
and not year to year?
That would be,
not year to year?
Yeah.
that would be good if it
Uh,
was possible.
You know,
We probably have to-
reason
You probably get the lawyer,
Make sure
yeah.
we're an attorney.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of getting out of the way talking about this. I want to save this for the end because it's not personnel directly that we're dealing with. It's at the end for a general discussion under
Okay.
comments. But, if I can redirect this back to the personnel, item on the agenda, we've had that discussion. Is there any other discussion on
Make a motion to approve.
Cartwright makes the motion to approve personnel?
Second.
Wilson seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's unanimous. Now it brings us to the comments and concerns, okay? Let me give you a roundabout story. I'm gonna bring this up, and I got a couple of other things here as well, but Ron Gregory, I know Don Davis knows him well. Ron Gregory is a
He knows you.
sports writer for some statewide publication.
Did he
And,
used to be here, David?
yeah,
I
He did.
thought he
He was
did.
at the
He
Journal.
was at the Journal,
He,
wasn't he?
he's big
Big time now.
reporter in the state. He had a column that I read Saturday, I guess it was. And I won't read all of it. It says, this reporter finds that Lincoln County High School has an all-time record of 44 wins and 140 losses in varsity football.
Yeah, I read that.
44 wins and 140 losses. That's, I'm assuming, in 19 years, because I think that's how long that school's been over there. We're in the 19th year now.
Is that,
Uh,
that's ugly to do.
And he goes on to go off the reservation on
Yeah.
why, and it's the same silly stuff. I'm not going to read that, but
It's ugly.
I don't put any stock in that. But the all-time wins and losses. Now, granted, I haven't followed it very closely, but I think we've had really one successful football coach over there, and that was a guy named Corey Beck, I think,
Mhm.
who
Went to.
won a
Georgia.
couple of years, and he went to Georgia and won the state championship in the highest division they had. But
But I can tell.
all
you
the
why he
other
went to Georgia.
coaches have found
No,
it
he won't.
difficult to win over there. And we all know some reasons for that. The distance, we lose kids from playing.
Mhm.
There's a number of reasons, and I'm not faulting any of those coaches, including the current one, as far as their coaching abilities or anything else. I'm looking at a situation here where, as a principal, I know that football, whether you like it or not, the other people would argue with it, but football is the flagship sport in your high school. And we just spent a couple of $1 million or in the process of improving facilities over there. And my question is, with 44 wins and 140 losses, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to be doing as a Board of Education to provide training? I don't know how much football coaches know when they coach football, whether they just want the job and hope they win, or I don't know enough to know that. But there seems to be something wrong when you've got 44 wins and 140 losses. I don't know what direction to go with this, but I know if kids don't know how to block and they don't know how to tackle, and you can't get the big boys in the school to come out and
That's right.
play, so you got a small line. There's lots of issues that I don't know how to solve. But if we're going to put that much money into that facility, we ought to be putting money into making sure that our coaches have proper training, that they get schooled, maybe even a higher salary. That's why I ask about a contract. If I understand what you all have been telling me, once a coach is hired, he can be 0 and 200, and we're still obligated to hire him every year. That doesn't make much sense. We informally and not officially kind of hold teachers responsible if they're not producing a product out of their classroom. Every year, if it's bad, we kind of look at them and do something for them. Well, we don't seem to be doing that with coaching. We send the softball team has been successful and has sent kids to college on college scholarships that may not have gone in the first place had it not been for softball. Athletics is a way to get higher education. I think boards in the past have tended to kind of overlook this and kind of go with the flow on who would put the most pressure on, but we need to help our coaches improve what they're doing. That's my pulpit statement right now. I don't know how to go about doing that. That's why I asked about a long-term contract. I
Yeah.
can foresee, I told Mr. Barnett yesterday, I'm not opposed to hiring a full-time coach who does nothing but maybe teach one weightlifting class or something.
Oh, you'll
And-
know more about that.
And working full-time on this. I'm not opposed to that. I don't know that I'm necessarily for it, but I'm not opposed to that kind of commitment.
Do the
Uh,
kids have a weightlifting class now that they go to every
Let
day?
let me speak to
There's
that.
one there.
I played in college, so I saw.
Yeah, here's a college football
I
player.
saw I saw where different people came from and just off the top of my head, there was just a few things. Number one is even if we do have a weightlifting class, it needs to be made a priority. I mean, we need to have somebody in there. We need to have a program. It needs to be
And
not
get
just
a credit for
Right.
it.
But when I was in school, we had a weightlifting class and Rod Cummings taught it and he
was
had us right. You
Yeah.
know, he had us doing everything we need to do. It was, we were serious about it because we wanted to win. And then your people who excelled were the people in the weight room. Now, in order to just compete, everybody's in the weight room. So that's the one thing. Number two, I know in successful programs and I've talked about this with a few people, your varsity coach is very involved all the way up from your midget league,
Mhm.
Pee Wee league,
Mhm.
into your middle schools. And he sets a precedence. This is the offense I run. This is the defense I run. This is what I want you to do. So when these kids get to the high school level, this stuff is second nature to them. That helps. And then number three, you was talking about knowledge. I think, and I don't know what the board's able to do in the financial situation, but coaches clinics, you know, that these successful college coaches have be something that maybe, because listen, you're never going to be to the point where you don't learn, you know, anymore.
Hopefully.
And for their coaches and even get the kids to camps. Like I went to the WVU camp, learned a lot there, back in 95. And so I mean, there's some things I think we can do. And as far as getting the kids out, I mean, it's just creating and Don's coached before, it's creating a atmosphere that, that they'll want to play for.
And they
You
want
know
to
what I mean?
win.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
creating excitement about the program.
Yes,
I
and you
think that's
don't when
something.
you're 14 and 146 or 41,
Right.
whatever.
Right. But and however you go about that to bring excitement to the program, you know, that can be talked about later, how you would do that, but there's just some things that, I mean, just base things that we would,
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about a second ago. If you've got a head coach, he needs to be able to hire his assistant and select his staff. It's all on him.
I don't
If
think
you've
he
got him under
legally
contract.
can hire, but he can make a recommendation.
So
You know,
I don't
to-
know how all of that's legal or anything else, but you guys got any comment on any of that? And again, I'm not holding anybody accountable at this point. I'm looking at it from what can we do as a board to support our athletic programs? So,
I agree.
Yeah, I do too, but we must be very careful about looking at the law and what we require. They need, you know, maybe they do need to be, some kind of have a teaching schedule there instead of just be a coach. I don't know. But what are other counties doing? I'm sure they have some things that we might want to look at and see how they do it.
and probably the most out of that we talked that I mentioned, the most important thing is the weight program. I mean, that's just first and foremost nowadays. And whether, I mean, however you go about it, I mean, it needs to be, and I don't know how to, I'll just say it, this needs to be basically mandatory. If you're going to play, you need to be in this weight room. I mean, I know that's probably not the legalities of that But I mean, in order to be successful, that's what you need. You
Well, that
have
could
to
be a PE class and get a credit for it.
Sure.
You should surely be able to do
And it
that,
has to
shouldn't
be
you?
something that, I mean, it has to be serious. It has to be,
Somebody who is
know what I
serious
mean?
about it, yes.
Well, for me sitting on the board, I kind of think that we have well, no, I don't want to get that specific, but we just need to send a message, I think, that we're serious about what kids are provided in athletics. What are we going to do? Uh, I don't know where we go here. I think that, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just gonna say, the idea has been tossed around of a countywide athletic director position that we have discussed before. And just,
Well,
Well, in Wayne County a few years ago, they had a coach over there who won, Coach Harmon, Tommy Harmon. Uh, he had coordination into the middle schools, into the buddy leagues. Everybody bought into his plays, his technique and whatever, and they just kept taking that all the way up. And he was tremendously successful. An athletic director is what you're talking about, could see that happens.
I don't know what, financially if we can do that, but I think it's worth a look. I think maybe it mitigates some of the problems we see in our middle schools where we have principals trying to assume the role of athletic directors.
Well, there aren't any, you
Well,
know.
yeah, I know that, but,
And sometimes they have to, because they have to
and,
order. and-
without getting too specific here, it kind of goes back to what we talked about before. An employee, they're just kind of grandfathered in year after year. But why are we treating non-employees like that? Because you can, and I'll use this as a hypothetical. You have a girls program and a new coach comes on the scene and there's kids dropping, quitting left and right. There's a litany of problems. And the athletic director, who's the principal, says, all's good. And everybody in the community and the school and the kids and the parents who knows everything's not good, kind of kick rocks.
well, because your
And-
principal's got bigger fish to fry. as-
Sure.
That's right. I can tell you, principal
You're
is not gonna
overwhelmed.
put that much
It
time
also
into it because
speaks
you
to-
just don't have
You
it.
don't have it.
It speaks to our evaluation process there is very
When I was
broken.
high school, I had the tag on me, believe it or not, that I was anti-athletic. I was as pro-athletic as anybody could be, but I was also pro-academic and I wanted to run the school. I couldn't do both. And, I think about the legacy coaches in this county. I'm thinking football. Blaine Wilkerson comes to your mind. Mike Linsky comes to your mind. Dwayne Hunting somewhat, he was successful. And beyond that, we really haven't had a line of successful football coaches in this county. I don't know enough about football. I just know enough to get mad on Saturdays, but, I don't know. I don't know. Would you all be in agreement if we just task Frank and Don with looking into this as far as the contracts go and the hirings business and that sort of
And the
thing?
evaluation documents.
And
The evaluation process is I don't know enough about football
No, either. We need to
to
have
have
the
an opinion about it.
an evaluation documents. we
In
need to
general,
do.
I think, our evaluation process is flawed.
Yeah,
Well, and if you have one
Especially,
individual.
We have, there's situations here, like, again, I'm not gonna get specific, but when you have, I'd call it gross misconduct, there should be some avenue, especially if they're a probationary, for saying, if you hire delivery drivers, which I do frequently, and they drive the van in the ditch 3 times, you don't get past your probationary period. So if you're a probationary coach and you come on in the program and a percentage of your team quits and there's, you know, plethora of problems, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be, well, you hope the principal agrees. It might be their
Well,
relative.
I have no doubt that all of these coaches, football coaches at the high school over the years wanted to win. I don't have any doubt in my mind.
No.
Now, what did the Board of Education do to help them win or hinder them from winning? That may be, Mr. Barnett, is the area we want to look into is what can we do to create a winning program at the high school? And let's focus just on football first. We can do the others as we go along when we get this mapped out. But what can we as a board do to facilitate, I won't say winning, I say being competitive and producing, making that experience enjoyable for the players and for the school.
Well, I'm not sure what you learned.
We need to
from
build a better
football,
mousetrap.
that we could not do it for all coaching positions at the high school.
Just need to
I
make sure
think-
we're supporting them.
Yes, and you know, you really do need to do that, support all of the things, because everybody doesn't need to or want to play football, but they certainly have some athletic things they want to do. So instead of just,
Well, the others seem to be going to
well, they seem
softball
to be,
goes
but
well,
we don't know.
volleyball's pretty successful.
Yeah, but I think that we need
Basketball
to have
has been
general
somewhat.
rules for every sport,
Yeah.
not just take one
Yeah.
sport
Well,
and sign it out.
The
Because
reason I
they're
say
losing.
the one sport is that it's a monumental task to look at all of them. And
Well, I
we
don't
want to
know.
minimize Frank's work at this point.
I think if we're gonna do it for one, we need to look at all sports. Some of them are not gonna take a whole lot of looking, you know, some of them are. But we can't, I don't believe as a board that we need to zero out on one coach and one sport and say, you have to do this,
No,
and then nobody
Let me
else.
rephrase it. I'm not zeroing in on a coach. I'm zeroing in on the program being 44 and 140.
But who is that person who is ahead?
Well,
of
it
that
hasn't been the
program?
same coach in all that period.
No,
of
it
time.
hasn't. So it has to be that we need to look farther before we decide
Well,
to specialize on football, I
I
believe.
think what kind of what was looking at is with the other sports being somewhat successful,
Successful,
they might be the ones who need the help first. And I mean, not saying that they're any more important or less important.
but they have much to give and
Right.
tell us and tell them and share.
And one thing I've noticed, if you remember, Dave, when you was principal and when I played, you know, we had winning team, playoff teams, and it changed the whole attitude at the school. I mean, Friday night, I mean, your whole school was together, excited because Friday night was the big night we was going to play, and it just kind of changes an attitude. So it's not just about the sports, but it's about it helps the school, not just
Spirit.
football, but you know, the whole athletics with the
Right.
whole mindset in general.
And girls and boys and
Right.
all of the sports, you know, teams. But that's why I think we can't just do football. We have to look at a general thing for all coaches to be able.
Well, if
to
we're
do.
looking at something and starting with coaching education, that's going to carry across all activities. It doesn't necessarily have to pigeonhole itself into one way, but you know, it's just a matter of once we look into what, first of all, we have to assess the need. What's the need? Is it lack of knowledge? Is it lack of experience? Is it lack of, you know, being around
Players.
D1 people? Is it around then we have to attack that. And once you attack that you can take that same building block and put it and apply it everywhere. It's just, you know, because success is success regardless of whether it's with a, you know, oblong shaped ball or a round ball.
And that's like, say, you know, Tommy Barrett, he's got a softball team
Team of girls, it's
that's
great.
been, I mean, you know,
Phenomenal.
championship contenders every year. He probably don't need the help that I mean, you know, he's
Well, not
our-
taking nothing away from Tommy, those girls put a lot of individual work into
Right.
that with their travel teams and with their private lessons. And, you know, so there's a lot of that involved too with that.
Right.
The one thing I may know about football is that for years here too, we kind of had an absence of a midget league. And we may need to,
That hurts bad.
that's gonna compound in Lincoln County High School's favor at
It
some point. These kids are, Josh Bell and everyone
Starting to,
that's been involved with Little League. Todd Gilkerson, the guy that was over it last year, they've done great things in developing these kids younger. And I like your idea, maybe kind of incorporate that into the high school program some way so they're all on the same page, but that's gonna take a few years for these kids to come up.
and to see the, the good things that come from
And-
it. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
gonna do it a year or two.
Maybe SSAC would be a place to start to just talk with. And let me say this again. I am not singling out the current football coach. It wasn't a winning program when he took over. And that whoever his predecessor was did not have a winning program when he took over. 44 and 140. And from what I see, we may not win one game this year. We might beat St. Albans maybe. Hopefully we'll win them all, but that number could be worse by the end of the year, but it's not, you can't lay this on the back of one coach. And I'm not doing that. I'm looking at to be a systematic situation here. What can we do to make it better, period?
Right, what you're saying, we're not throwing blame, we're wanting to know what we can do to
To
help
help
be
and
successful.
make it be, yes, yes.
Anybody have anything else about athletics?
And that Jeremy does, I know he's wanting to say something.
It's,
Your thoughts are good.
yeah, I know, it's been said, I mean, it's from the ground up. You gotta start competing in better conferences in middle school. We're in one of the weakest conferences in the state. I mean, you got year after year, schools can't even field teams because they don't have enough kids. We've got to schedule them. You can't get even a complete schedule in, play games. I mean, there's a lot of tiers to it.
Yeah.
And a
And-
lot of people who don't want to do what they need to do, and a lot of people who want to tell you what to do. So you've got both sides
And enrollment.
and enrollments.
I mean, our middle schools are in a conference where a school can just choose to leave the conference without any votes being taken or anything. And I mean, how do you have a conference with a commissioner and supposedly your 7 athletic directors, which are also your principals? I
Now,
mean, how do you make decisions? How do you do things? How do you have bylaws? How,
when they do that though, Jeremy, can they go right into another conference if they leave the conference?
Conference accepts.
It's accept them? Is there no rules anymore?
well, that's what I wonder.
Okay, there's not enough teams around, they end up playing the teams in the conference anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me switch up. We got a nice pond over there behind the high school. It's kind of an algae problem this summer. I saw fish. I was over there at it and saw fish jump. So I know there's fish in there. Lots of algae. Can we have our BOAG person kind of look at what we can do to kind of clean that up, the algae, and make that, I don't know, maybe the science people, I don't know who that would be. But that's a project that I'd like to see somebody do, that we kind of clean that lake up. It's a beautiful little low lake. You can't get close enough to it to fish in it because of snakes and algae and everything else.
Yeah.
But that's not a high priority, but I'm just bringing
Thinking
that out.
about it.
The other thing is that Jim Brown from School Board Association sent a form out that he suggested. This is all voluntary regarding the open meetings and the videotaping and all of that. That we do a self-assessment on how our school board meetings go. And he wants us to do it once a quarter. I think that's reasonable. You all got that same email
Mhm.
and you can take a look at it as well. But, I think probably, sometime between now and Thanksgiving,
Have this
Uh,
done,
yeah,
yeah.
we just kind of think about our meeting and assess ourselves and Mr. Barnett as well will assessing it. And,
Now
we'll just put that in a file and keep it. And when the state comes down,
we'll have it.
that's it. How's your school board meetings? We can pull that out. Frank can pull it out and say, look, we're doing self-assessments. We take it seriously.
Now, how often would we think about doing these self-assessments? Yearly or
Quarterly.
quarterly? Okay, so we'll need to kind of look at where,
Yeah,
this is,
so let's,
know,
let's
laid a little
set,
bit.
let's set the
what's that?
second meeting in November,
Okay, to have
whatever
it
date
due.
that is, as a day to do a self-assessment.
And do it here, David,
You can have it done and bring it in.
Okay.
I
because
I
I like
think
to,
that was,
I think I'd like to take a little
Yeah.
time to think about it.
yeah, just, we can kind of do that.
Okay,
That's all I had. Did you all have anything else?
Yeah, Dave, I got one last thing. I keep talking so much, but I didn't want to
Hey,
go on with this.
alright.
Didn't want to go on this on the phone because of the lag between and everything. But so I've mentioned it a while back just in passing, but I've had several people come to me about wanting to know what if we had a policy on our Wednesday night extracurriculars. And I've talked to several people just in passing, previous board members, and hey, we can't. Well, let me preface by saying that obviously Wednesday night is usually
Mm,
your church
Church night.
is focused on youth. It's usually on Wednesday night
Mhm.
as a rule of thumb. And so, and it's always been presented this way. Well, what can we do about just shutting down Wednesday night? And that's not realistic. And you know that, and I know that that's just not a realistic thing. So I've been thinking because, it's been so many people, and I know we can't really discuss it. It's on an agenda, but could we not look at maybe setting like a criteria or something that needs to be met? Like say, I understand, like I think I've talked to people before, and if we have like the SSAC schedules a game, there's nothing you can do about that. Or if it's a conference game that, say that's the only night you can get officials, or that's the only night you can get a bus, or that's the only night that you can get a facility, then obviously let's not be silly. Let's just say, we need to use that night. But my thought was this, if to set maybe a criteria that needs to be met and in order to play on Wednesday nights, just, like I said, those things, not that if there's a concert on Friday night we want to go to, that don't really, I don't think that would really constitute an emergency. But, and that way we can not make our parents choose between our convictions and our kids' playing time.
or
And
your family, and,
with that being said, so, and I've heard that, hey, we don't have our facilities, our gyms. Just, I'll give you an example. My wife coached the Duval Middle School team 2 years ago. I think, it was 2 years ago. So we had no gym at Duval. At that time, the Methodist church was wanting, I think, $200 a practice. So we didn't use the Methodist church. So that year we had practice, my wife did not, with the help of Olivia Dean, they had practice every Wednesday night, just like normal, was over by 6 o'clock. They had to work to get the logistics right. And they were done by 6 every Wednesday. They had to make up one game on a Wednesday night. And so every game was played, every practice, and that was without a gym. So the way I look at it is it's possible if we would just kind of think about not why we can't, but how we can. And again, I'm not saying let's not be silly, about it, but like I said, outside of, an SSAC game, gym availability, bus availability, or official availability, I mean, there's really no other reason that we couldn't work around
Wednesday night.
a Wednesday night.
Do we have many activities on Wednesday nights?
Not a lot, but here's what I ran into last year. And my son was on the ninth grade team last year, and there was, I think it was 9 games scheduled.
On Wednesday nights.
And then, yes, straight on Wednesday. Well, then they ended up canceling they played like 2, maybe 3 of those games and they ended up canceling. I don't know what the reasoning was, but they canceled the rest of the games. I think it was bus availability for those
Away
freshman games.
Yeah.
And so it worked out for me, it worked out great. I mean, I know that's bad for my kid, but it worked out great because we didn't have to make that decision every Wednesday night.
Church or school.
Right. And I think, like I said, if there is a legit reason, I mean, I'm not being,
You
You know,
need to look at it.
yeah, but I just think if there's a chance to do that
I
and
could
set,
go back 2 years, give you a little history here. When we first, Jeremy and I first came on the board and Butchie, I said the same thing that you said. And Mr. Kelly was here and he said, well, let me do something else without board action on that. Because once you focus in on that, then there's
It gets
agencies
big.
and organizations out there that will hone in on you for doing it for a particular reason.
Mhm.
And he said, the way we approach it is that I can let my principals and coaches and people know that we want to avoid Wednesday nights.
Without official action.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we pretty much did. I didn't realize that was
yeah, that was just,
scheduled last year.
it was just last year, like I said, and then the way that it worked out, I mean, it worked out to where I assume I think it was transportation issues. I'm not 100% sure.
It could be, and then so a lot of times people will start out thinking they're gonna have enough to have a ninth grade team, they end up not,
And
and they have to fold.
Yeah, and that could have been because it was there wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah.
Seems like our youth league football, but they don't practice on Wednesday night. Cause
I think you're
I'm
right.
over there every evening.
Yeah, I think you're right. Cause I go by a lot and there's
On
no,
Wednesdays, I don't remember seeing you.
There's-
I'm
no.
assuming that they're
Yeah,
not
the
practicing.
Most
Usually-
youth leagues don't do Sunday or
on
Wednesday.
Wednesdays.
And,
Well,
and
you
that
know-
would be, I mean, one of those things too, I mean, I don't see a reason why, like, and games are one thing, but your practices, I mean, if we could, if there's no reason really, I mean, one night a week that's be
Well,
over by 6
There,
o'clock.
there doesn't have to be, like Mr. Bell says, there doesn't have to be a policy in place,
No,
but there can be
you could
I
talk to the
think that there can
principals
be
and the athletic, well, we don't
an
need
understanding that,
about it.
that if you have something after 6:30 on Wednesday, then you submit your reason
Yeah.
as to why.
Yes, you either don't or submit your reason. You do one of the two things.
You know, just to show, hey, this is why this has to happen. I mean,
Because it is important.
simple.
I think it's important that we, that we do that and try to work with our communities. Thursdays, of course, have always traditionally been our junior high football, but we don't have, that anymore. But I don't know. I just think we ought to try to work around Wednesdays and not have required athletic events to be scheduled at that time.
I mean, like, if you go, like Mr. Bell said, with the understanding that, this is what we're trying to avoid unless it is a necessary thing. Like, again, not a concert on Friday night, but, there's an official shortage. I mean, we've dealt with that. Like I said, when my wife coached, we dealt with that. It was horrible. Sometimes, getting bus drivers, or even with the gym situation, at Duval without a gym, scheduling gyms, that's,
Was a nightmare.
it's tough. So, I mean, there can be, but
But you gotta do it in
I
enough
I like
time.
that. And the idea of, for me personally, is that, and Jeremy can attest to it, usually Wednesday night is kind of geared towards kids and youth and, we just hate to kind of put someone in that position.
And the other thing is at my age, and of course, the people I know who have kids even believe it, they believe Wednesday night's church night. And I just have to agree with them on that, because I just, I think we need to probably look real carefully at this.
We don't want to get ourselves in I get what we're
You
saying.
get yourself in a legal situation really quick.
And a negative situation really
Yeah.
quick.
I've
where-
never been in a positive legal situation.
Well,
but,
but
It would be, at the implied,
All right, I think Mr. Barnett's got the gist of what we want here on this.
I make a motion that we adjourn until Tuesday, October 29th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Midway Elementary School.
I second.
Midway Elementary, is this
Yes.
the LSIC?
It is.
Yes.
This is Cartwright makes the or Wilson makes the
Wilson.
motion, Cartwright second.
Mhm.
Time is 7:55. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.